Imagine, the year is 2014. Smash Bros. For Wii U and 3DS has released after months of hype. Binding of Isaac Rebirth came out after the critical acclaim of its original Flash iteration. And of course, Markiplier just finished playing the first 4 FNAF games.
On 3, 1, 2.
But meanwhile, something else big had dropped this year. Something no one could have ever seen becoming as big as it is now. And no, I'm still not talking about FNAF. I'm pretty sure that ship had sailed already. But in actuality, the first ever Jackbox Party Pack would release. A game featuring 5 whole party games for one low price. I mean, party games featuring multiple different games in them wasn't a new thing. There was the Hasbro Family Game Night series on the Wii that actually did a similar thing, but instead of original games, it was just replicating real Hasbro games like Sorry, Yahtzee, Connect 4, and Battleship for some reason. But Jellyvision, recently renamed to Jackbox Games, strived to be different. They would take a few of the games they had released on their own and update them to put them together in this pack with some new games thrown in for good measure. All these games would have the genius idea of using phones as controllers, with mainly the idea being that not everybody had enough controllers. This was aided by the fact that they had developed an app for the Ouya version of You Don't Know Jack 2011 that specifically turned the phone into a usable controller. A little seedling of things to come. It's just a little sad that the Ouya of all things was what sparked such an idea. But after the release of the Jackpad on mobile devices, they'd soon go on to make full use of the phone's controller concept in this pack. Basically, you'd go to jackbox.tv, put in the room code given by the game, your name, and boom, suddenly you were in the game. It was like magic. My favorite part of this concept is honestly just all the applications it opened up for party games like this, and even just games in general. Now being able to play with the concept of hiding things like words and prompts that only some players would get to see on their phones. And also the concept of using your phone really brings in the possibility of adding lots of visuals and flair to the phone screen that you wouldn't get with just a normal controller. If anything, you can compare it to everyone being given a Wii U gamepad as a controller, but instead of a $100 pad, it's something that everyone already has on their own. Though, strangely enough, this series never released on Wii U. Huh. Anyway, it's pretty easy to look back at this original pack and poke fun at it, especially as the years keep going by and we receive pack after pack over the years. I mean, to be fair, it was the first of its kind. Not many series have a perfect start, but it does feel weird going back to this game. Without all the quality of life features I've grown accustomed to. Like, dear God. How did they think letting anyone start the game would be a good idea? But honestly, I wanted to go back and look through this pack with a fine-tooth comb to really see if it started off on the right foot for kicking off this now beloved and maybe hated, depending on the person, series. So, how about we just dive right into the first game of the Jackbox Party Pack then? That being You Don't Know Jack 2015. A trivia game that's playable with 1 to 4 players. The game is hosted by the fan favorite Cookie Masterson. It takes you through a set of absurd trivia of 2 rounds with 5 questions each, before then going to a unique final round. You Don't Know Jack is described as a game that mixes pop culture and high culture for its questions. Basically, you'll get a question like, if the 80s hair band Poison was like poison ivy, what part of them would give people a rash? The answers being the fumes of the hairspray, the oil in their makeup, the silk on their rocking clothes, and the ink in their tattoos. Now, despite how weird the question and answers are worded, the question they are actually trying to ask here is, what makes poison ivy give people a rash? Which is oil. So this then would mean the answer is the oil in their makeup. Many of the questions are formatted like this, giving this strange twist to trivia that I can't say I've seen done in really anything else. While you're thinking about this question though, there's actually a timer above you. This is basically the amount of money you can make from a question. Get the answer right, and they take this time, multiply it by 100, and add it to your score. Get it wrong, however, and the opposite happens, you losing the money dictated by the timer. Oh, and don't worry, you can go into the negatives as well. This continues on for 10 total questions, like I said, with the money becoming double in round 2, doubling the risk and therefore reward of each question. The game is also split up into episodes, 50 of them to be exact, totaling up to 500 unique questions if we exclude the Jack attack. We'll get back to that. In each, there's also a wrong answer of the game. This is something that is unique to each episode. Basically, there will be a specific wrong answer in one of the questions that relates to the sponsor of that episode. In this case, slightly used balloons. So basically, throughout the game, you should be looking for any clues in an answer that could relate to the sponsor. In this case, the wrong answer is in this Dr. Seuss question, which the answer here is pop, since they usually pop balloons. I think you get what I'm getting at. Anyway, after you find it, you'll be given $4,000, or $8,000 if you enter round 2, since, all the cash is double. Making this absolutely something that you should keep your eyes out for. Luckily, if it hasn't shown up by the start of round 2, the game will remind all the players with just a helpful little reminder saying the wrong answer of the game is still out there to grab. Then meanwhile, at the start of the game, each player gets a screw. A screw is basically something you could use on any other player at any time to force them to answer a question within 5 seconds. If they get it wrong, they'd lose a bunch of money, and a ton of money goes to the person that uses the screw. However, the opposite will happen if they get it right, giving them a load of money while you're the one getting screwed. There's also plenty of question types on top of that, such as the dis or dat, where one player is tasked to decide which category an answer belongs to based on 2 answers, or even both, depending on the episode. Meanwhile, all the other players are rushing to answer one of the choices, since if the main player gets it wrong, the other players will have a chance to take the points if they guessed correctly. The rest are a lot more similar to normal questions, though, with things such as Who's the Dummy, where Cookie Masterson's ventriloquist Cookie Masterson's ventriloquist puppet will ask the question. There's also, and I'm quoting this from the game, the put the choices into order then buzz in and see if you are right question, where the answers are all in different orders, and selecting the right order of objects would grant you some extra winning cash. There's plenty more of these as the episodes go on, and they can be a fun diversion from the normal gameplay, even if they end up being very similar to that normal gameplay. After question 10, though, you enter the final round, the Jack attack. Here you get a clue to follow before soon getting a category and answers flying in from the sides of the screen. Here you want to try and match a category and answer based on the clue. In this example, the clue was, I love you like a legal guardian. That means that Harry Potter and the Dursleys would go together, since they are Harry Potter's legal guardians. You get $2,000 for every right answer, though you have to be the first one to buzz in to get these points. And of course, every wrong answer will take away $2,000, so it's best to be careful sometimes. Now, for me personally, it took me a while to understand You Don't Know Jack. If anything, it was probably the fact that I just suck straight ass at trivia. Or maybe it's just the fact that this is in a pack with 4 other games, making it not really seem as special, even compared to the other games in this pack. But honestly, I've really started taking a liking to this series, which honestly was probably thanks to a certain future sequel, but whatever. Honestly, I think I started liking it just because of the absurdity of some of its questions, the vibes given off by the music and transitions, and of course, the host Cookie Masterson himself. I mean, honestly, it's weird. I can't say I've really heard of hosts like Cookie Masterson and You Don't Know Jack. The way he responds to every single person's choices, either congratulating them or, most of the time saying how they're wrong in many different ways. It just, feels pretty special. I can't say I've seen a single other game really do something like this with their host. Looking back on this game today, the weirdest part is how close it is to You Don't Know Jack 2011. I mean, it has the same music, the same backgrounds, they both have the exact same special transitions. It's just kind of weird looking back at it, because if anything, this kind of just feels like ELC to that game.
What the fuck? You just lost all your money! You just lost all of your money!
If I can't be the best, I sure as hell can be the worst!
Which, I mean, if you look at it that way, that original 2011 version had 73 episodes, and this one has 50. The 2011 game went on for 30, and this one's in a pack with 4 other games, and it's still only $25. If, you really liked that original You Don't Know Jack 2011, you could pretty much see this as a 50-episode DLC for $5. And, in that way, that's a pretty good deal. Though, to be fair, I really only noticed this kind of stuff because before working on this video, I had the idea of a full-on You Don't Know Jack retrospective. While working on that video, I kind of realized that only like 10 people max would be interested in these old-ass PC games, and then a bunch of people would actually be interested in me talking about the You Don't Know Jack games that are in the Jackbox games, which kind of led to this video being made. So, I don't know, I might honestly go back to the idea in the future if anyone's actually interested in something like that. But, whatever. We're sticking with You Don't Know Jack 2015 for now. And with that, I'd say this is a pretty decent You Don't Know Jack game. It's not the best one ever, but, I don't think it's bad. It's a classic, and sometimes I open it just to enjoy the ride. The only real bad thing I could say about it is that it doesn't really work well for streaming, and even then Discord calls. This is mainly because of how many different parts of this game use, speed as part of getting points. The timer at the bottom of the screen, the jack attack, being the first one to buzz in. All that kind of stuff just makes it so the person playing the game and sharing it kinda has this unfair boost and advantage. I mean, that's just kinda part of how this game was made. They didn't really think ahead on how it works over streaming. Overall, I'd give this game like a 6 out of 10, I guess? I don't know, I was never really good at giving scores or tier lists and stuff. Remember that all the scores I am going to give these games are my opinion. And now with that, we're done talking about You Don't Know Jack 2015. Don't worry, that's the longest part of the video right there. So anyway, how about we finally move on to our next game? That being Drawful, a drawing game made for 3 to 8 players. Now, in my opinion, Drawful is an absolute Jackbox classic. The idea is simple. You get a prompt to draw, and you just draw it best you can. You only have one color and no erase or undo button, so you have to make every action count. After everyone is done, the drawings will be put up on screen one by one. Then, everyone but the artist will enter what they think is a name that would make sense for the drawing. After that, all the names will be put on screen, including the real one. Now the goal is to try and pick which of these names is the actual title. Players will get 500 points per player that picks their fake answer, and 1,000 points for finding the real answer. The artist will also get 1,000 points for every player that gets the right answer, incentivizing the players to all try their best to draw the right thing. Meanwhile, you can also give likes to answers you think are good or funny. They don't add any points, but the player to get the most by the end will get a special like cup. It's kinda just a secondary goal that I don't usually care for. But then this process continues for each drawing that's been submitted into the game. There will also be a round 2 if there's 5 or fewer players. Just sorta kinda wanted to note that. Then, bang! The players will have their scores put up on screen, and whoever has the most is a winner. Just that simple. I mean, that's basically the whole game. It's super simple and easy to understand, but honestly, endlessly replayable. I love seeing the drawings that people put on screen or the ridiculous answers people try to put in. It's just a total blast. I mean, sure, I prefer the future iterations compared to this original one, but considering that it's one of the 2 games that was made specifically for this pack, it's crazy how Jackbox nailed such a good idea right out the gate here, and I totally applaud them for it. I'd say that, to me, this is a great 9 out of 10 game. Extremely fun, and once again, a personal staple to the Jackbox series. But since we're already talking about original games made for this party pack, how about we talk about the other one? I mean, it's gonna be pretty tough to outdo Drawful, but maybe it won't be, one of the worst games that Jackbox has ever created in their entire history of making games. Oh hi! It's Spud. Spud is a writing game made for 2-to-8 players. So, like, basically a word will come down and you write an extension to the word. And then everyone else will vote on if that's cool or not. If it is, the extension is given to another player as their word to extend on. And if not, the extension is thrown away and a brand new word is put in its place. Then this repeats until the timer, I think that is, finishes, and whoever has the most points at the end wins. Yep, that's it. Okay, now I know this is a very easy game to pick on. Even to the point that Jackbox themselves will throw in jokes at this game's expense. But, I mean, the game isn't, like, terrible, I guess. It functions. You can win it, I guess. Honestly, it's more fun to go against the rules and try to create this long, drawn-out story with the other players instead. Which isn't even really what the game is asking you to do anyway. And even then, playing that game just doesn't really change the fact that there's just nothing here. There's not even really much to talk about. If Drawful is a game that's simple enough for anyone to understand and have fun with, then this game just leans too far into that simplicity, to the point that it's just not even really a game anymore. I mean, yeah, it's about as bad as everyone says it is. Sure, maybe sometimes it can get an occasional laugh out of people, but even then, it's not like you couldn't get the same experience from 8 people just sitting in a room together and talking. But hey, at least the game works. So I'll give it a 2 out of 10 on this one. I mean, the good thing is that there wouldn't be a game in Jackbox that I think stoops this low for a good while. So, how about we move on to the next game and just forget about the potato. Swatter, a trivia game made for 1 to 100 players. Funnily enough, they made a version of this game that works on Amazon Alexa, which, I mean, probably goes to show the kind of game that you're getting into here, if you don't even need a controller to play it. Basically, Swatter is a game where several bugs with different categories appear. Then, one by one, they put a fact on screen. Your goal is to determine if the fact is true or false. You get points if you're correct, while also getting bonus points if you were the first one to answer correctly. This continues on for 3 total rounds, with the last round having all facts be based around one category. Whoever has the most points by the end wins. Again, another very simple game, but I can at least say that it's better than Spud, although that's admittedly not a very high bar to pass. I mean, there's no twists here. The gameplay is just hitting a true or false button on your device, seeing if you were right, then moving on. There's not much to this game, and I feel like it would become stale after just a few rounds, unless you really, really like true or false questions. Most of the time, people bring this game up just for it having the single largest player count in any Jackbox game. But when the most interesting thing about it is its player count, that kind of goes to show how forgettable and boring this game actually is. I'll give this game like a 3 out of 10 on this one, since it at least feels like a game, and the rules are simple and somewhat fun. This is just a game that you'll probably end up playing once and then never again. Honestly, the pack has been on a bit of a dry streak as of now, so let's hope things pick up in our last game. Fibbage XL, a trivia game made for 2 to 8 players. Now this is what I'm talking about here. Fibbage is another one of those staple Jackbox series to me. This one does not disappoint as a first entry. It's actually labeled as XL since the original Fibbage was a standalone game that released a few months before this pack. Though strangely on Steam, you can only buy Fibbage XL and not the game on its own. I'm not really sure what's going on there, but whatever. Let's just get to the actual game. Fibbage starts out by letting a player choose the category they want. Then after choosing, they ask a fill-in-the-blank question based on the category. Then all the players will write in possible answers to this question. After every player writes in their answer, they will then all appear on screen, along with the real answer. So now the player's job is to try and find the truth out of all these answers. The players get 500 points for every single player that picks their lie, and 1,000 points for finding the truth. This loop goes on for 2 rounds of 3 questions each, with points then being doubled in the second round, becoming 1,000 per person you fool and 2,000 for finding the truth. Afterwards, there's a final Fibbage, a single question that has players enter answers that are no longer trying to fill in a blank, but instead are possible words or names. Points are also tripled for this round, becoming 1,500 for each player you fool and 3,000 for finding the truth. Now on paper, this game sounds pretty similar to Drawful, which honestly is fair enough. But I think the trivia angle of this game helps it stand out more. There's no section for drawing, instead everyone gets in on the action of submitting answers immediately. Also, the changing point values help this game stand out more. If anything, I'd say it's a mix between Drawful and You Don't Know Jack. Once again, this is a series that I feel like shows the potential of Jackbox. It's simple in nature, but it can be super fun despite that. Fibbage might not be on the same level as Drawful in my eyes, since it's a bit simpler in nature with players just answering already existing questions instead of drawings that were made by other players, but that doesn't change the fact that I'd say this original entry is a very commendable game. And I'd say an 8 out of 10. And with that, that's all 5 games in the original Jackbox Party Pack. Honestly, when looking back on this first entry, it's clear to me why Jackbox would soon become so popular. Sure, not every game here is perfect, not all of them are masterpieces or anything, and obviously the games done well here would soon be improved and expanded upon, really showing the potential some of these games have. Personally, it wasn't until Pack 3 that my eyes shifted to Jackbox, so I missed out on the first 2 entries for quite a while. Though, honestly, that also might have been thanks to me growing up with the Wii U at the time. There wasn't really much I could do. But honestly, if I was able to play these games at the time, I feel like I would have fallen in love with this. I mean, Fibbage, Drawful, and even You Don't Know Jack kind of make the $25 price tag already worth it in my eyes. And maybe I would have even liked Spud or Swatter, although that's, not really changing the fact that they're still bad. A few other things I would like to talk about would be the soundtrack and presentation of the game. I really like Jackbox games' different styles of music on display, with multiple different instruments, and even uses of vocals in some of the music. A sign of things to come as the series would find its footing. I also really enjoyed the idea of these games having their own boxes in the menu, as if they were real board games. I just think it's a really nice touch that unfortunately does go to the wayside as time goes on. Though it's not really like this ever impacted the games themselves in any way. With that all out of the way though, do I think this pack is worth picking up today? Well, for one, it depends. If you have the money to buy multiple packs, then I could say you can simply skip this one. But if you're only looking to buy one pack, then I can't lie, this could actually be a fairly good option. Sure, it only got an average score of 5.6 out of 10 if we add up my ratings of the games, but honestly, that score is so low just because of how bad Swatter and Spud is. Everything else in the pack, though, I'd say are examples of some of Jackbox's best games, even if they still had room to improve in places. And don't forget, this was still a totally new idea to the team. There hadn't really been anything quite like these games before, from the uniqueness of the controllers to the idea of having 5 games in a pack, and as a first pack, this is a pretty good start to the series. Last big Jackbox sale even had this game at a measly $2.50, which I think is just a flat-out steal with what you're getting here. Sure, I do think there are absolutely packs that are better, and if you do buy every pack, you probably won't end up playing this one that much at all, but I feel like this pack still holds up on its own, and it's fun going and looking back at the roots of this series that I hold so highly today. But basically, that's it for this review. Do you agree with the stances I have on these games? Do you think I missed anything important? Do you think Spud should have actually been labeled as the 10 out of 10 game that it truly deserves to be? If so, then let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, then why not give it a like and maybe subscribe if you want to? I mean, you could do whatever you want down there. I'm not your mom.